Welcome to Raiders Roundtable, presented by America First Credit Union. JT along with Eddie Paskal. We're going to have Bucky Brooks join us from NFL Network. We're really excited about that. As the Raiders kept the streak alive against the Denver Broncos, that is 8 in a row and undefeated in Vegas at Allegiant Stadium. And Eddie, I just thought the Raiders probably played their best game of the year, even with the 63-point game. I just thought this was precision football, and they went out on a high note.
Yeah, I mean, for me, JT, it felt complete. It felt like a complete victory. It felt like the Raiders playing in themselves in the best possible way, playing within themselves, I should say. And I think if you're Antonio Pierce, what a moment to end on in front of the fans. You have all three phases of this team really rocking and rolling. It was a lot of fun yesterday at Allegiant.
Yeah, and we said that all week leading up on Roundtable and radio and all the other platforms, that there was something to play for. And
100%.
I want to get this out of the way. The key for me was to send Sean Payton and the Broncos home without a winning season, with a loss, being swept, and not having them with something big to build on. That was the key to this game. Both coaches had a lot on the line. Both teams were inspired and ready to play. The Raiders were just better.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, give credit to the Broncos, too, for coming out. They certainly didn't lay over by any stretch of the imagination. So, really, it was so much fun, JT. It was, for two teams that had no playoff aspirations going into the game, that was just a fun, spirited, good football game. And obviously, the silver and black came out on top, which is great news for us. But across the board, it was just good football. It was fun to watch.
Let's take a look at the highlights of the game for all of our viewers and our listeners here. And to start off, Antonio Pierce, he doesn't know his future. I think we'll get to that coming up here because he did a hell of a job, and there's a lot of good news hopefully coming here. But right out of the gate, their ability to establish the run, and Zeus was running downhill. That was good to see early.
I mean, for me, JT, going into this game, the Broncos have not been able to stop anyone on the ground in 2023. And I said, if the Raiders can run the ball effectively, which they did, I like their chances, and certainly that played out on Sunday.
I like him as a receiver, too. Yeah. Josh Jacobs, when healthy, can do it both. You have to be able to do both. Aiden was locked in with his accuracy early. You could tell that Bo Hardigree wanted to get him going. And I love this play. This is kind of where I sit with my family. And he was running towards us. And when he made the move, Jacoby, I knew he had to juke out a defender at the end. He wouldn't have been able to beat him to the goal line. He made an athletic move. Look, nothing there. He could have threw it away. And then he takes off, and then boom, coming up to the goal line, little head fake, boom, he gets in. That was momentous for the team.
I mean, I think, JT, too, as you know, you're in the last regular season of the game, empty the playbook. Let's have some fun, and I think credit to Bo Hardigree and the offensive staff for doing just that.
Denver's got some good players going forward. They have a big quarterback issue going forward. I thought Jarrett Stidham did not win the job going into next year. He had a good opportunity. He's a big, strong player, played for the silver and black here. And it was nice, Eddie, that the Raiders were playing with the lead. Remember, they were chasing Indianapolis last time.
Yeah, I mean, just a difference in tone of tenor of this game, right? It felt like the Raiders were on the front foot from Jump Street, and I think we see the benefits of that across the board against the Broncos there. Here's
a Max Crosby sack, which is important because Max, stats, individual stats, he doesn't care about that, but the fans do. And every game you see Max play, you're expecting a sack or two.
Yeah, 100%. And I think just in terms of, we talked a lot this year about how the national media has changed around Max, the conversations surrounding him, and having him have these big moments against the division rival, really good to see.
Jerry Jeudy and some of their wide receivers are really good. They have players who are big and strong, very athletic. So as we look at the clock, 10:30 to go in the game, tied up at 7. I thought the Raiders were the better team at this point. They wanted to get Devontae going. He had a couple of milestones that he wanted to get to.
Yeah, Devontae did his thing. We have 5 catches for 46 yards and a touchdown we'll get to in a little bit. But, I mean, Devontae just as steady as they come, man. Just a good quality all-pro level wide receiver.
And they have good chemistry together. When they don't, it's evident. Yeah. When he's missing Devontae, you can say, him and Devontae aren't on the same page, but most of the time they are. And I just love the composure of Aiden here. Raiders catch a break here.
Big time.
As the ball comes back, they went to commercial and they reviewed it and it came back. And I thought this was a pivotal moment of the game where the Raiders were not going to lose possession and the momentum in the game.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of those big moments where you sit back and thankfully we can Monday morning quarterback and say, thankfully it worked out for the Raiders in their favor. But yeah, a big moment that thankfully went the Raiders' way.
Could a kick go down the middle more than that?
Oh, he's so good.
Right down the middle for Carlson. Look at the jump that Max got on this play, which caused chaos because Max timed that beautifully. He would have had a sack here. Just another opportunity for a Raider defender on the other side to make a play. And we saw this here again. Look at Isaiah Powell come down and make an athletic play. I love when the safeties and the corners are playing behind the line of scrimmage.
100%. I think if we kind of zoom out on the defense, too, we saw a lot of the young guys on the defensive side of the football kind of ball out. You talked about Isaiah Tyree gets after the quarterback. It was good to see these young building blocks do their thing.
This is the moment for me, the best drive of the entire season, backed up against their own end zone. The Raiders come out firing, and it's nice when you throw the ball to Trey Tucker. When you let him have one-on-one coverage, the safety gets over there late. This is what we should have saw more of this year. I hope the Raiders build on it. And then, Eddie, take us through the touchdown here because it was weird. He extends the play by going backward. Devontae doesn't see the ball.
Yeah.
And then it's right in front of him, and he makes an athletic play.
Yeah, I mean, that's just Devontae being Devontae as we watch the replay here. But, man, it's one of those things. We talked about the chemistry. I don't think this is a touchdown that happens week 7, week 8. This is one time on task, Aiden and Devontae doing their thing.
So we're in the third quarter with under 4:30 to go, 17-7. You knew that Stidham was going to take some deep shots. Look at this play by Jack Jones. Not only did he deflect it, but if he doesn't time the jump perfectly, he's coming down. If he doesn't time that perfectly, he doesn't get a hand on it. That could have been a game saver.
You know, Jack Jones was talking postgame. He said, that's what I need to come down with. But ironically, because he didn't come down with it, it actually helped field position and helped the Raiders, as we see here on that fourth down. But, man, you can't say enough good things about the midseason addition of Jack Jones.
And that showed us a lot, too, because Sean Payton going for it in the third quarter. Yeah. That's what he should do. The season's over for Denver. They're going to keep it and try to extend plays. 17-7. We're in the fourth quarter now underway. One of my favorite balls of the year because of the pump fake. I told this to Eric Allen earlier today. Look at the pump fake. That's Rich Gannon. What made Gannon an MVP was his ability to use his mind in the pump fake to change the field in the safety's eyes. He did it on that play.
Yeah, I think, JT, going into this final stretch, all we wanted to see from Aiden was incremental improvement, right? Steady incremental improvement. And I think that throw and the way you described it, 100% is getting better week after week after week.
This was a nice touchdown for Denver.
Yeah, 100%.
An athletic play after the catch. And look, the Raiders knew down at the goal line here that they were going to try to. This is 4th and goal. The game officially ends if they don't get in. They get in. And I was up in the booth with the guys and said, we got a game.
Yeah.
Two-score game. But how about this, Eddie, on that 3rd and 6, they throw it to the marker, which I've been preaching to you all year.
That's your thing.
Not underneath, hoping to get it there, and they get these first downs. And this is where they put the game out of reach with these first critical downs here that just was milking the clock to under 5 minutes to go.
And you know what this is, JT? This is just execution, right? This is just kind of, you're executing your plan. You're better than the opposition. You're saying, hey, this is what we're going to do, and this is how we're going to do it. And credit to the entire staff because at the big moment and the final game of the year, it was awesome to see.
How about Hooper there? Can he play? No
Oof,
doubt. He's a good tight end in this league. I wonder what his future looks like. Raiders put the game away here 27-14. And then at the end, I did this for many years in Alameda with the coaches running to the black hole. And there was no way Antonio Pierce was going into the locker room. He wanted to stop there and thank the fans for the support.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it going into this week, JT, about a perfect opportunity to say thank you for the fans who have been up with us, who've been down with us in 2023. So credit to AP for acknowledging that moment, for understanding that moment, and saying his thank you.
You were on the podcast after the game in the 5th quarter. When you look at these stats, what jumped out at you?
Third down. I like third down, right? Above 50% there on third down. And the big one, JT, is those 2 zeros right there, my friend. 0 penalties, 0 yards. Second time in 2023 that was the case for the Silver and Black.
I don't know how you do it. I don't know how you play an NFL game with no penalties because there's a penalty that could be called, especially in this league, on every play. That is a clean, decisive stat sheet for the Raiders, and they did everything right. I like the 129 rushing and the third down, as you said, but to have no penalties, that's a testament to Antonio Pierce telling his players to play smart. Don't get us in trouble. There were a couple of costly penalties in Indy. Not a lot of them, but all were really costly. That was never an issue in this game.
And really, I think the best part about that is it wasn't a flash in the pan, right? We saw this stat come out from our PR staff earlier in the evening where they said now the Raiders are officially the least penalized team in 2023, which if I would have told you that at the beginning of the year, JT, I wouldn't have believed it. You certainly wouldn't have believed it. And it really is a testament to the discipline that AP has kind of instilled in this group. And credit to all 53 guys on that roster for buying into that.
Well, there's no way you become a team that knocks down the penalties that drastically unless the coaches are doing a great job.
Yeah.
They're preaching something in these team meetings, and the players are locked in. They play for this interim head coach, and now the interim tag's off. He'll either be the head coach or not, and I hope he is because he did a great job so far this year. But Antonio Pierce instilled discipline enthusiasm,
100%,
energy, they were always prepared to play. Even in the loss 3-0, they were prepared to play. Even in the loss in Miami, where they went out late and got there, they were ready to play in the first quarter and held the Dolphins in check. I just love the way this team prepared in Henderson and were ready to play on game day.
You know, I think what was beautiful about this year, JT, and we'll have a lot of time to zoom out and dissect what happened, what worked, what didn't work, and all that. But really, the one thing that was undebatable about this team, they had a ton of heart. There was no one out there who could say the Raiders did not come to play every single day. And I think to Antonio's credit, too, I think, you know, some of the stuff that you can't really define, but he made the Raiders cool again, right? He made the guys in that locker room have their chest out a little bit, say, hey, this is who we are and what we're about, and it was a lot of fun to watch.
Great point, Eddie, because he took over a team where a lot of the coaches were retained by the previous regime and said, look, I don't care where you're from, I don't care what you're doing, do better. Let's go win games. And the Raiders were able to do that. And that was an exclamation point against the Denver Broncos. I love beating Denver.
Yes.
And the Denver Bronco fans who walked past me on the post-game show after the game had their head down. And, look, Sean Payton's going to have that team playing well in the future, but he has not beaten the Las Vegas Raiders. When we come back, Bucky Brooks from NFL.com, NFL Network will join us. You catch him on a lot of Raider platforms. He's going to come in here and give us a breakdown of the entire year and what to look ahead with. Bucky Brooks on deck as we continue on the Roundtable.
To be a Raider is to be bold, powerful, and loyal.
What's a Raider? Always a Raider.
Raider Nation family is authentic, with the heart here in Las Vegas. We are often imitated, but can never be duplicated. Why?
The autumn wind is a Raider.
Because there is only one nation. Keep up with the 2023 season by downloading the mobile Raiders app or visiting Raiders.com/connect for scores, where to watch, and what's happening next.
When you're a part of a team, there are expectations. And one of the things I expect from my team is trust. I work hard to win, and I trust my team to work hard too. That's why I feel good about America First Credit Union. They're my financial team, and I trust that they'll always be there for me and my community. I'm Hunter Renfro. Join me and the America First team today.
60 years in the making, the Raiders now have a permanent place to call home, and the doors are open to get a world-class behind-the-scenes tour of their new home. An attraction unlike any other in Las Vegas, Allegiant Stadium. The Las Vegas Raiders invite you to experience the expertly guided tour that includes exclusive access to areas restricted to only football players, coaches, and staff. For more information, visit AllegiantStadium.com/tours.
Hey, folks, how are you?
It's an exciting setting here, though, isn't it?
Very.
You can really feel the energy.
Las Vegas Iron Mike Tyson, Vegas Golden Knights. You've got all the gold jackets here to see, the family for Ken Stabler. You got the makings of a very special evening.
Put it together here in Las Vegas.
The Raider. It is loud in this stadium. It's my first time in Allegiant. And an interception on the first down, and now breaks the record. The highest point total in Raiders franchise history.
It's the best show in Vegas tonight, I'll tell you that.
How are you? Huddle up for a second here. Listen, you guys, you know, we're celebrating the fans today. Celebrating Raider Nation. Nobody represents this place better than you guys. Would you guys light the torch for me today?
Yes.
For my father, in honor of my father?
Oh,
that's what we'd like you guys to do today.
Black Hole always has your
You guys got it up there, okay?
Yes, sir.
It'd be an honor for me to have you guys do it. Love you guys and what you guys represent. All right? Thank you. Well, I do too. You guys represent this nation unbelievably. There's nothing like it. There really is. There's nothing like this.
And Gorilla, Violator, all of the best of the Black Hole and Raider Nation who stood by this team through the ups and downs. What a great moment for Mark Davis to give them the opportunity to light the torch.
That's good
it's
stuff.
the best fan base in all of sports. I have to say that. Don't we thank you guys for watching Raiders Game Day every single week. And we have two analysts, one great defensive player, one great offensive player, one with the screw loose, one's a little more stable, but they made a good pair. And here's a look back at some of the greatest breakdowns from JJ and EA this year.
I love it. We got a bunch situation. Usually on bunch, you want to communicate with your cornerbacks so you don't get in a pick situation and then leave Keenan Allen wide open. Because I know you're at home saying, man, why is this dude wide open after a monster week? But you see here, it was a natural pick.
My coach always told me the linebackers are the tacklers. So you know what? Block them, right? Let the corners be the ones to come up and tackle and leave the running back, the corners, and the safeties. This is a safety. Leave that one to Josh Jacobs. Block the linebacker.
You can't get much downhill than that.
The Raiders not only played with a renewed energy after a very emotional week, they covered the basics. Football 101. They won the turnover battle, and they ran the football. To talk more about it, let's go over to EA and JJ.
I'll tell you, Amber, that turnover battle is what's is what it's about here.
The coach, Bobo said we're going 5 wide on y'all. When we go 5 wide, look at the middle of the field. When you go 5 wide, you know you're going to get
What is he doing? What is he doing? Check
or you are going to get man. Watch this man right here. His name is Jacoby. Yeah, I got to go. Jacoby Myers. Hey, we call that barbecue chicken.
You need to continue to see this. Strip that top arm.
Man, and if we can get this on the other side of Max Crosby,
and that's
good
what we're
luck.
looking for right there, right? Really important to be in the right position so you can make the play if the quarterback makes a mistake. Here we're going to roll it. As you see, center field safety, 2-5 in the hole. Once this pocket breaks down, he's not really a mobile quarterback, so you want to move with the quarterback and tips it, overthrows JJ.
We got a hat on. Yes, they do.
They come in bunches.
Well, you do know defense is cool, EA is cool, but if you don't score points, you don't win. Point blank period. And today, we put up 60. 3 of those things on these boys. But let's start it off right here. I love it. Bo, offensive coordinator, aggressive. You put trips to the right. You have to be able to account for all 3 receivers. You got your speedster, Trey Tucker, in the slot, running away. But look at the safety. Goes over here to numero 117, and you got 1-on-1, and Derwin James cannot keep up with the young fella. He told you the fastest on the Raiders. Derwin James didn't know that. Not only that, like I always tell you, EA.
I know you're about to say.
The receivers are not blocking down the field. It's not an explosive game. Look at Jacoby Myers down the field blocking.
We know a guy, 87, right? He has to be the focal point of our defense, particularly in zone. So we're going to triangle here. And what you have to do is every person in that triangle have to know where Kelsey is at all times. You have to almost man-to-man. You can't have your eyes in the backfield. Hobbs got to do a better job of squeezing that ball, forcing him to throw the ball to someone else coming into this football game. It doesn't matter. Just don't let this guy beat you.
Mad Max is playing at a very, very high level. Defensive player of the year.
That's
and
right.
We back to Amber. Raiders got it going. Bobo got it going. Bobo calling a good game. Taking stupid in the locker room. Everybody going dumb out here. And so is the Raiders. That's back-to-back W's. Back to you, Amber. And then look, I mean, this is a DB that he's running away from, putting the move on. I got to go. That's big time. If we can continue to get our tight ends involved like this, we're going to be all right. The only thing is I got to get him right on his celebration because this – no, we need –
you got to follow through, right?
No, we need something like that. So we're going to go for the first down.
I don't understand what he's saying 99% of the time, but I like it.
They had a lot of fun here. You could see this, EA, James Jones, the whole crew. Amber does an amazing job. Welcome back to Raiders Roundtable along with Eddie Paskal. I'm JT. Bucky Brooks, kind enough to join us. All the great work he does on NFL Network, NFL.com, and here with us with the Silver and Black. And Bucky, I'll jump in and start with that game for the Raiders. They wanted it bad. They wanted to sweep the Broncos and send AP off as the interim coach with something to look forward to. Give me your big picture on the performance by the Silver and Black.
Yeah, just really solid, man. I can't say enough about how the team has responded to AP's leadership. I just think the connectivity that you see between coaches and players is something that we haven't seen in a long time. And then looking in the locker room after the game, seeing Marcus Allen and Charles Woodson and all those guys coming back, I think you could tell that they were playing for something beyond the team. They were playing for the brand. And as you think about, like, kind of jump-starting the program going next year, regardless of whether AP is the coach. I think that synergy remains the same. I think it was a great send-off for AP. I think it was a great finish to the season.
Yeah, 100%. A great moment for those fans at Allegiant Stadium, too, yesterday, Buck. But, when we look at 2023, and JT and I have talked about it a lot over the past, 10, 12 weeks, the identity of this team was the Raiders' defense. And really, since Antonio Pierce got the interim head coaching role, that defense went from good to really good. You look at Max Crosby, a guy who's playing out of his mind, the emergence of Malcolm Kuhn, some of those young guys on the defensive side of the football. For you, Buck, what was kind of the biggest difference with this Raiders defense when Antonio Pierce got that interim head coaching role?
I think it became a defensive emphasis. Sometimes the head coach, depending on what side of the ball he comes from, that side gets a little more attention or that side gets a little more pressure. Can't underscore the job that Patrick Graham did to get this team up and going and get them to the next level. But then I think all the lessons kind of came to play, like all the things that they talked about, all the stuff that they were really emphasizing. We saw that running to the ball, tackling, keeping the ball in front, making it a very physical affair at every level of the defense. All those things played out. And when you play the kind of defense that they were able to play, man, you're always going to be in a game. And it's one of the reasons why they were in so many games after Antonio Pierce took over the job.
Bucky, let's stay with the defense because I don't think they have as many holes going forward as we're looking at Jack Jones, assuming he's obviously back, and Antonio Pierce guy, very good player who's had an impact. Max, Spillane, Diablo, Merrick, Epps, Jacorian Bennett, as you know, being developed as a higher draft pick. What we know that we're going to see going forward with Nate Hobbs, who's a very good player who has tremendous upside. And then the evolution of Malcolm Kuntz. If you look at this and helicopter it from the top here, the personnel for the Raiders on defense, how close are they to even being better next year?
Oh, I think they can be much better. And I think what you have is a nice foundation because they now know that what all the coaches were talking about, it works. If Patrick Graham is the defense coordinator in particular, like they know that the system works. They've seen it work. There's tape that shows if we do X, Y, and Z, we can win and dominate. So those things are good. I think the other thing that you have to look for is, can they find another pass rusher? Whether it's inside or outside, the elite teams in the league, they're able to get to the passer with three different guys. One inside, two outside, and then you just kind of squeeze the pocket. Can you find more guys that can do that? Have some combinations, and maybe Tyree Wilson can do that. He plays some inside and those things. But I think, look, they're obviously trending up. You just got to make sure that you continue to build upon where you left off at the end of the season.
The emergence of Malcolm Kuntz in 2023 was one of the best storylines. 8 sacks in the 9 games where AP was the interim head coach. And we saw what that did for Max Crosby, Bucky, and just another dominant outing for number 98, another great campaign for him. But if you're Max and you're able to now get that production like you talk about from Malcolm Kuntz for 17 games on the other side of you, what kind of fun, dynamic things does that open up for you?
Well, it opens up because, like, the elite teams have multiple pass rushers. And what you want to do is Max Crosby will also always be the number one pass rusher, so he'll always get the attention. The guy on the backside has to be capable enough to win the one-on-one battles. And then if you have that other person on the interior that can win one-on-one, well, then it becomes fun. The other thing that can happen is if you have guys who have interchangeable skills, now what you do is you allow Max Crosby to go to the weak link. Hey, man, you go wherever you go. We'll line up according to you, and then we can hunt. There's a lot of creative things that you can do when you have multiple pass rushers on that front line.
Bucky, when we get to Max, and we'll stay here on what he has to do, he's in consideration for Defensive Player of the Year. I'm biased here, but what I see him do live and when they're on the road is the tackle for losses. And the tackle for losses on top of the sacks, but how he goes sideline to sideline. He can start in the backfield rushing the quarterback and then go to the other side running full speed out of bounds to make a hit. Now, there are a lot of other great players in this league, but I don't see, other than T.J. Watt or Micah Parsons, I don't see anyone else really doing that sideline to sideline. What distinguishes him as he moves forward into next year, knowing he's a Pro Bowler and a great future, I think, potential Hall of Famer?
He's an all-pro player. He's an all-pro caliber player, and the numbers will eventually get to the point where we talk about him in that light. The thing that he does is, and it's underrated, it's not talked about, he plays so hard. And you would like to think that effort isn't a consideration, but the great players play hard. He empties the bucket all the time. And when you hear AP talk about we need to get everybody to match Max Crosby's energy, that's what he's saying. Because if you can have 11 guys that play balls to the wall like he does, it then allows your defense to be ferocious. And you begin to see the kind of results that you saw. But it starts with him because he is the point on the sword. He is the leader of the defense. And as he plays with that effort, it makes everybody else play with the same kind of effort because that is the standard.
Yeah, 100%. I think the big thing for us this year is we wanted to see Max bring guys with him, right? We knew we were going to get the effort, the energy, the commitment from number 98. But, hey, let's see you bring the rest of the roster with you, and that's exactly what Max did. But, Bucky, switching to the offensive side of the football, really over the past, let's call it 6 or so weeks, we've been looking for the improvement, right, from the guys on the offense, from your Trey Tuckers, from your Michael Mayers. And I think that you have to start that conversation with guys that really finish strong with Zamir White. He finishes, these final 4 games with Josh Jacobs unable to go. But, what did you see from Zamir? And you look at the rushing numbers since Zamir took over, Bucky, and the Raiders go for 129 yesterday, averaged over 4 yards a carry. I mean, what works when Zeus is put in the backfield there?
Look, very similar to what worked when Josh Jacobs was there. Not necessarily the same player, but they run with a very violent physical style. And there was a concerted effort to run the football. Every time you heard AP talk about the team, he talked about physicality, violence, toughness, imposing your will. Well, if you want to do that, your running back has to play with that kind of vigor. And you saw that. Violent runner, downhill runner, ran through contact, finished runs, and appeared to have the competitive stamina to get stronger as the game goes on. So now it's about talking to Zamir at the end of the season and saying the difference between the good and the great ones is they can do it for 17 games. So can you get yourself into a position where you're in great shape, you have the right mindset that you're going to be the starter and you're going to be the workhorse back. A lot of times when guys get elevated from being the number 2 to the number 1, they're not ready to handle the role, the responsibilities that come with that. He has shown that in a small sample size. Well, now he has to ready his mind to be the full-time guy, regardless of whether Josh Jacobs is there or not.
Bucky, what I find fascinating when we saw you in the preseason, if you look at this team and what their expectations were on offense, they just came up short, and it got the head coach fired, and the former regime drafted these young players who actually played better after they dismissed the coach, and it wasn't an offensive coach. Bo Hardigree was calling the plays here, but Antonio Pierce, a former linebacker, and a defensive coach. What do you think clicked with some of these younger players? Did they play with nothing to lose? Did they play freer? Were the play designs better? Because with Zeus, Tucker, especially Michael Mayer, when healthy, and Aiden O'Connell, those young players got some really nice chemistry going forward.
Okay, so I'm an old school Raider, and I come from the school of thought that when the Raiders had their coaching staff, they always had a bunch of former Raiders, a bunch of former players there. There is something about the connectivity when a former player stands in front of the room and he talks. It has a different respect level. There's some credibility there. And the way that AP handled it, because people think being a player's coach is being easy. No, being a player's coach is being relatable, meaning I can go hard at you because I know how hard it is. But I also can relate to the challenges that are out there between the lines. I think some of that was conveyed. I think AP being able to say, look, man, I know this is a hard down, but this is what you got to do. And I think the practice habits, the demands, what they did, I think it was very reminiscent of the old school Raiders that had a bunch of those great players kind of inserted on the coaching staff. I think there's just a connectivity that AP and the rest of the staff had with the young players. I think it just clicked. And when I listen to Jack Jones and I listen to some of the younger players talk about it, they talked about that relatability and just kind of getting it. I think AP was able to communicate it maybe in a different way than the previous regime.
It's so interesting, Bucky, because JT and I were talking about that earlier, where AP just seemed to connect with this group, seemed to connect with this fan base in a way that was very real, very authentic to him, and it was a lot of fun to watch over the latter part of the season. Well, it is the most scrutinized position in all of sports, and we got to talk about it too, is the quarterback. And you look at Aiden O'Connell, who finishes 2023 in a really nice kind of run there, 8 touchdowns, no interceptions over that Final Four. But, Buck, when you kind of evaluated Aiden coming out, and certainly a guy who has a lot of skills, right, a lot of room to grow, what kind of stood out to you from the young signal caller for the Silver and Black?
Well, some of the things that we saw, like he was a very mature player, very mature, had a lot of snaps at Purdue. He had been around the college game a lot, so it wasn't necessarily new to him. Now, he still had to learn and adapt to the pro game. But I think the thing that he was able to do, particularly after AP took over, take care of the football. Turnovers are the number one deciding factor in who wins and loses games. And so when he took care of the ball, you notice that they won. And he strikes me as a guy that is selfless with his ego. So it wasn't about the numbers, it was about the W. And when you have a player like that, they're willing to kind of check their ego at the door. And sometimes it's a 300-yard passing game that's needed. Sometimes it's, hey, man, I'm going to throw maybe for 100 yards, but I'm going to hand it off, but we're winning. And I'm okay with that. At the end of the day, the W is what everyone wants. And I think he's been able to do that. The interesting thing will be, is he good enough to help this team go to the next level? Or is he good enough, if surrounded by even more talent, to kind of be the bus driver? Everyone hates the term the game manager, but the guy that can just kind of be the pass-first point guard that allows the playmakers to do their job. He's shown flashes of that, but how much confidence do you have in him to be able to do that? And can you continue to upgrade the supporting cast around him to allow him to be very, very comfortable in that kind of role?
Great analysis as always, Bucky. I'll tell you, it's a very complicated topic. You do a lot of work in regards to grades and the draft, and I don't think at 13 the Raiders can get one of these top 2 or 3 quarterbacks. They can't. They're going to have to trade up. And what do you do now going forward? Because Aiden has proven that he is a quarterback in this building, very cap-friendly contract, proven in this environment. You made a great point about his ego. He's perfect to be the backup or to compete for the starter. Is it a veteran? Is it trading up to get an elite quarterback? How complicated is this issue for the Raiders heading into the offseason?
Well, it's not complicated because you have someone that if the season started tomorrow, you have someone who can start. So now what you're looking for is really the right fit. And I think fit is everything when it comes to the program and the Raiders and whoever the head coach is. And so there are going to be a lot of veterans that are going to be available. There are going to be some young guys that come available. The thing that you're looking for as you're looking at the position, who do we want to be? Who would be the right fit? You've seen how it worked with Aiden O'Connell. So now you're looking for someone who can check their ego at the door, who doesn't have to be the quote-unquote franchise guy where it's all about them. It's about the silver and black. To me, I think it's more about fit than do we have to move up to get him and those things. And the only thing you can do is interview guys, do background checks, talk to people around, talk to teammates that have played with the prospective quarterbacks that you're talking about, and see, are they worthy of being guys that can kind of fit in and help this team continue to make those steps to be in a playoff and then eventually a title contender.
Well, Bucky, we're going to talk a lot about the quarterbacks over the next 2, 3, 4 months for the Silver and Black and really for all the teams across the NFL. But when you kind of take a look at this draft class in general, Bucky, the 2024 class, what position groups do we as fans need to be keeping an eye on? What are the deep groups coming out in April's draft?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like we said every year, the wide receiver class is special. I mean, there are a ton of guys that can do it. And it's just the depth of talent that is always available there. So the wide receiver position will get a lot of conversation. People will talk about Marvin Harrison Jr. and some of the other guys, Keon Coleman, that are at the top of the board. Offensive line is deep. You have plenty of offensive tackles that can be able to get it done. We'll see some of those guys actually play on the national championship game, and so that will be exciting. But not necessarily the pass rushers, but you'll see some interior defensive linemen that can do it. But at the end of the day, if you can build a championship team, you got to be able to fortify the trenches. And there are plenty of guys that are available in the trenches that should be able to help.
Yeah, Bucky, I'll follow up with that. I've been saying here with the former regimes, and I'll say it to you, they got to get an offensive lineman that's proven in this league. I think a veteran, a former Pro Bowler, if you got to pay over for it, go get him. You got Colton Miller coming back. You get a right tackle. You have depth there. There's been too many swing players here. Too many players that are not above average, that are good, but aren't elite. And I think the Raiders, depending on what they do long-term with the quarterback and the coach, have got to find one diamond in the rough, one former player from another team. Time ran out, the price is right, and go get him. And don't wait for camp. And get that player in-house here, reportedly $50+ million potentially to work with here. Do you think the Raiders, your gut feeling, think they'll be aggressive in the offseason with free agents, or is the program heading in a direction where they're going to draft and develop young players?
A lot of it depends on who becomes the permanent general manager and head coach and what their philosophies are. But you are right. It's hard to continue to have a turnstile on the offensive line. At some point, you would like to get to the place where you have an offensive line that's together 3-4 years because that chemistry and the connectivity is important. Also, you've seen if you have a dominant offensive line, you can have lesser guys at running back and be effective. You can have lesser guys sometimes at quarterback and be effective because they're protected. The offense, this league is a line of scrimmage league. You got to be dominant on the offensive line. You got to be dominant on the defensive line. If you're good in those two areas, it allows you to do a bunch of different stuff to mask whatever deficiencies you have behind them. But you cannot be weak at the front line on either area and expect to be a championship team.
Well, Buck, before we let you go, as we kind of wrap up 2023 and we look ahead to an uncertain future, right? No one knows in this room what's going to happen in terms of the front office. But when you as a former player kind of look back at what Antonio Pierce brought to the Silver and Black in 2023, certainly a period of ups and downs, a lot of exciting moments. But what's kind of going to stick with you about what Antonio brought to this program?
I brought a swag back. Mm-hmm. And anyone who's been around the program for a long time, when Mr. Davis was around, like, you felt the mystique of the Raiders. I think AP bringing that back. And I think what's fascinating is having not played there, but growing up being a fan, he was able to kind of feel some of that, the way that the fan base really embraced him, the way that he embraced the fan base, like all of this stuff. Some people run from that. He ran to that. And so I have a tremendous amount of respect for that. And knowing AP personally, having watched him grow from being undrafted player to being a Pro Bowl player, Super Bowl champion, to watch him coach high school, then to college, watching him take all those lessons that he learned along the way and put them into practice as an interim coach, to me, it's remarkable. To think about what he was able to do in a 9-game run as an interim coach, man, if you can only imagine how much better he can be as a coach when he continues to learn and grow, and he's able to really put his full stamp on the program. Look, man, I just admire the job he done. I think he did a great job, and I think he upped the ante when it came to the excitement around the program.
Nicely said, Bucky. As always, really appreciate your work, everything you do behind the scenes with your career, all your analysis. I know your busy season's coming up here, and we'll be talking to you a bunch. Thanks for joining us on Raiders Roundtable.
Hey, man, thanks so much for having me on.
You got it. There he is, Bucky Brooks. Nice. He said remarkable
yeah.
at the end when he described Antonio Pierce. And I think that's important. He played in the league. He's highly respected, Bucky is, and he knows what Antonio Pierce did. If you're a former player, it might be easier than a fan to see the accomplishments of Antonio Pierce.
Yeah, I mean, and hearing it from Buck, and we've heard it from a bunch of people, JT, but, there is just that something special about Antonio, something that human element. And he's talked about it a lot. He goes, you need to be able to relate to your players. You need to be able to relate to everyone in the building, the equipment managers, the folks in the front office, whoever it may be. So, yeah, I mean, obviously neither of us know how the next 2, 3, 4 weeks are going to unfold, but, always at nothing but love and respect for
It'll be exciting, Eddie. It always is. That's why we're proud to work for this organization. When we come back, we'll talk about the offseason. The playoffs are here for the rest of the NFL. The Super Bowl is in Las Vegas. We got a lot of programming and some future roundtables coming up as we continue from the headquarters of the Silver and Black. We'll wrap it up on Raiders Roundtable next.
When you're a part of a team, there are expectations. And one of the things I expect from my team is trust. I work hard to win, and I trust my team to work hard too. That's why I feel good about America First Credit Union. They're my financial team, and I trust that they'll always be there for me and my community. I'm Hunter Renfro. Join me in the America First team today.
60 years in the making, the Raiders now have a permanent place to call home, and the doors are open to get a world-class behind-the-scenes tour of their new home. An attraction unlike any other in Las Vegas, Allegiant Stadium. The Las Vegas Raiders invite you to experience the expertly guided tour that includes exclusive access to areas restricted to only football players, coaches, and staff. For more information, visit AllegiantStadium.com/tours.
I went to the first combine. I met Al Davis there, and I remember him coming up to me and saying, "How would you like to play for the Silver and Black?" I knew the Raiders had that tradition of going to the playoffs and getting to the Super Bowl and winning the Super Bowl, so it's just a dream come true.
Super Bowl 18, a matchup between, without question, the two best teams in the National Football League. 1st and 10 with 12 seconds remaining. Been a struggling first half for Joe Theismann. 14-3 the Raiders lead.
I knew that our coaches up top had already started coming down. so nobody was spotting anymore. So I started seeing Joe Washington coming in the game, and I told Charlie Sumner, they're going to throw a screen pass. That's the only reason this guy's coming in.
Charlie Sumner, who is a great defensive coordinator for us, pulls Matt Millen out, puts in second-year player Jack Squirek, who rarely plays, and his one job is to spy Joe Washington.
Charlie Sumner called me, said, get over here, Squirek. He goes, you're going to go in for Matt.
Squirek comes running in. I'm like, what are you doing? And he's like, Charlie says do such and such.
Matt comes off the field, and to say he wasn't happy, probably an understatement.
So I go walking up, and I start yelling at him, like, what the hell are you doing?
I remember the last thing Charlie said was, don't do something stupid and go for the interception.
Theismann back, looks off to the left, and he fires it out there. Intercepted! Jack Squirek! Touchdown Raiders! I don't believe it!
Turn around, I look, and I see it. And it's a pick. So I just, are you kidding me? That's exactly why you did it.
A screen pass, and they looked like they knew it was coming.
Jack Squirek read it perfectly. Bam! Timed it perfectly. Bam! Got it. Scores. Touchdown.
Picked off by Jack Squirek. And the Raiders get another touchdown on a turnover.
Jack came out of nowhere, lined up in the air and grabbed the ball. And that was great. That was great.
My legs were literally shaking. I was on cloud nine. It didn't seem real at first. It was a dream come true to be in the Super Bowl, the biggest event possibly in the world, and you're going to be spotlighted. I was blessed to make that play. To make a big play in the Super Bowl is something you can't describe.
And the Lombardi Trophy will go to the Los Angeles Raiders.
Well done.
Yeah.
One of the greatest plays in Raider history is one of the greatest plays in Super Bowl history. Jack Squirek, rest in peace. A great tribute to him at Allegiant Stadium. Interesting, a lot of his former teammates were there. There were gold jackets. Jack wasn't a gold jacket. He was an iconic Raider. To have a play like that will define you and your family and your legacy with the silver and black, that means a lot.
Yeah, I mean, just two things real quick. The visual of him doing that without gloves, right? You see all these players on the defensive side of the football doing it without gloves, though. But, the other thing that I'm always so appreciative of, and I've said this time and time again, JT, this place does an incredible job of not only educating their fans, but educating their employees on why the Jack Squireks of the world, why they matter, why they are important, why you and I are not here having this conversation unless he does what he does. So, I mean, obviously, just an incredible moment in Raiders history, and really, really fun to go down memory lane. Good to see our friend Johnny O, too.
Yeah,
Shout out to Johnny O.
Had a lot to do with that.
Yeah.
And interesting, you used to see Jack up in Napa at the alumni events that they had, and he was just such a humble guy, and talking to him over the years on radio, he looks like a football player. He looked like a surfer, a bodybuilder, a football player, and a lot of people have a heavy heart. We saw Matt Millen walking into the game yesterday. He did the broadcast, and how cool was that? Matt, we just featured Matt Millen. He did the broadcast for Fox yesterday, and the Raiders won, and it just all ties it in full circle. I know Mark Davis and Mrs. Davis have a heavy heart for the Squirek family and all he was able to do. We want to wrap it up by thanking the fans. I've been a member of the Black Hole since I came to the Raiders, and to see what Mark Davis did yesterday on the sideline, we want to show you this. And the Black Hole did not know this. So this was a surprise that Mark was able to pull off here, and I thought it was really perfect to wrap up the season for all the fans.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a great moment. And you and I were talking about leading into the week where I was really happy that the last game of the season was at home, right? So you have an opportunity to say thank you to the fans. You have an opportunity to say thank you to the 53 guys on that roster in the practice squad for all the blood, sweat, and tears that they put into this thing. But just an incredible moment right here as we see Mark Davis talking to some of the most diehard members of the Raider Nation. And, man, just really, really cool. And you and I have talked about it a bunch. That special relationship that players have with these fans. Really, really cool for them to get their moment in the sun.
This was a sincere moment.
Yeah.
Because, again,
you can see the emotion. Yeah.
Well, they didn't know, so they bring him down there to have that experience of a sideline pass. And then the owner of the franchise comes over and tells them how important they are to the family of the Raiders. And you could tell Mark got emotional here. He really wanted from the bottom of his heart and what the fans mean. And remember, these are fans, very important point, who are Oakland fans. and LA fans. And when the move came in the beginning, it was not an easy sell for these people here. They all bought in. They were at the games. They're always at the game. Many of them violated. Gorilla and his wife traveled to all the games. That's a lot of expense to go do that, and Mark really appreciated that. When you light the torch, that's pretty impressive, and those guys and gals were really happy about that.
A once-in-a-lifetime moment,
yeah,
absolutely,
no
for them. And we talk about all the time, JT, we're there. We talk about Jack Squirek and what he meant. Like, you and I don't get to do this without the backing of the fans. So we 100% appreciate them, respect them, and love them for what they bring to us.
We want to thank everybody who downloads, subscribes, shares Raiders Roundtable. It was a big year. We had a lot of content. There was a lot going on behind the scenes, heading into the games, post games. We don't have this podcast and this forum without you, the great fans of the Silver and Black. We're going to have some off-season programming because there's a lot happening. Our in-depth analysis of the Super Bowl, what we're going to do from Radio Row, all the other programming, and some special features are all going to be coming from everyone at Silver and Black Productions. Thanks for joining us all season on Raiders Roundtable.
Raider Nation. Thank you, Raider Nation.
Raider Nation, I love y'all. Thank you.
Just want to say thank you guys for this year, man.
Thank you so much for your support. For the good times and the bad, you guys had our back.
Thank you for showing up and showing out.
We appreciate it in the locker room. The coaches appreciate it. The organization appreciates it.
You guys are truly the best fans in the world.
Always having our back. We couldn't do it without you.
Oh, love, man. We owe you a lot more than what we gave you. You deserve it. We come back next year. Let's get it.
2024 is going to be special. Go Raiders.